Up until a few weeks ago, I was restoring my boat in the middle of a lake. Exposed to wind and weather, bringing materials was cumbersome. It severely slowed me down. Today, on the other hand, compared to my previous situation, I am in boat building heaven. Well, almost. A roof over the head would be nice, but I managed to get by. And so, under these favorable circumstances, I started building a shower cabin on my steel yacht. As always, everything needs to be custom built. This presents a number of challenges as there are very few points where I can attach wooden boards, for example. As of now, all I have are two flat profiles on each side where I can attach the walls of the future cabin. The ribs offer no point of attachment whatsoever in their current state. The corner here will also require a very special custom solution. So that's our starting point, and with that, let's get to it. I'll start with the floor areas, where I need to prepare some areas to accommodate the boards, but first of all, I need to trim this floorboard. I got myself a used table saw, and since I've never used one of these before, I'm first gonna make a test cut to see how it works. Alright, this seems to be working, so I can go ahead and trim the big floorboard. Next, let's work on the floor area inside of the boat. On this side, I need to create an even base where the wooden panel can later sit on. I'm gonna cut some steel angle profiles, which will serve as support for the shower tub. I remove the paint down to the bare steel as much as possible, and then I can go ahead and weld these parts in. This black cloth that you see me using sometimes is actually a stage curtain, which you would find in a theater, for example. It's hardly flammable, and if in addition I make it a little wet, it provides great protection when welding inside the boat. And I know that the welds are not very beautiful, but it really doesn't matter here, since these parts will be completely covered up by a wooden structure later on. All I need is that some of the welds stick. A coat of primer to finish up, and then we can move on. Next, I'm gonna add some supportive steel L profiles between the ribs here. Alright, now this is done, and it will be useful later on when we put the shower tub in. Now, let's focus on this wall of the future shower cabin. Once again at the bottom, we need to weld in a base where the wooden plate can later rest on. For this, I'm gonna use a steel flat profile, which I first cut to the right length. Next, I'm gonna cut 3 triangles. I then weld these to the flat profile at specific placements. and I end up with some kind of a shelf which I can now weld into the boat. Here for once I got really nice welds, I guess because I was able to properly prepare the steel. Alright, so let's go ahead and weld this in place. First I need to make some room. Next I prepare the areas as much as possible for welding. And I want to point out that what you see here is a world of compromise. Ideally, any kind of welding should be done before you start putting in isolation material, electric wiring, and of course before you paint the thing. But in reality, you may come across situations where you have to weld in material in areas that are surrounded by wood, plastic and electronics. In my case, I was lucky that nothing got damaged or caught on fire, and so now I have a solid base where a wooden plate can rest on this side of the shower cabin. Next I'll move on to cutting the wooden plates. I'm using mainly Barge multiplex plates as these are quite robust, easy to work on and affordable. I need to remove my temporary water installation so that I have enough space to fit the plate behind. After putting the plate in and out a few times, each time trimming it a little here and there to make it fit better, I can go ahead and put down the first layer of boat lacquer. In the meantime of letting this dry, I can move on to cutting the second plate. And after making sure that this board also fits, it too gets a first coat of boat lacquer. Next I'm gonna cut 4 strips out of a thin wooden plate. After treating the wooden strips with boat lacquer, I glue them right onto the ribs with Sikaflex. After letting the Sikaflex cure for a day, I can remove the clamps and find myself with ribs that are coated with a 6 mm thick wood where I can now easily screw panels onto. After adding another coat of boat lacquer onto the wooden boards, I put them both in place together to see where we are at so far. I know it looks like I only put in 2 boards so far, but if you look more closely, you can see that I almost put in everything I need to add the remaining parts of the shower cabin, with the goal to eventually make it completely watertight. With the new steel supports at the bottom and the wooden parts on the sides, I can easily and quickly finish up the shower cabin. On this side I still have some fine adjustments to do, but all in all I'm almost there. And so that's where we are at so far with the shower cabin. Next, let's turn our attention to the new big boat. Specifically, let's have a look at what's inside. The boat is separated into 3 watertight compartments. You can only get in through a hatch at the bow or the stern, where I'm going in here, Once inside, you can see right through the middle all the way to the other side, with that big round shaft going through the hull obstructing your view. Heavy steel doors can be used to shut the compartments. The deck is held up by a total of 52 steel pillars. The entire boat is held together by thousands of rivets. At the time, they used steel with a different composition than nowadays, one that was much less prone to entering into chemical reactions with other elements, oxidation for example, or more commonly known as rust. For this reason, we find very little rust considering the age of the boat. For comparison, here is a piece of modern steel that was welded in way after the ship was initially built, and it's almost completely rotten away. In a few areas, however, rust has managed to spread inside the steel and big plates of rust have come loose. Not to worry though, I had an ultrasonic check done and the worst we found was about 1 mm of loss in thickness. Because the deck isn't completely watertight, some rainwater has accumulated in the bilge. Luckily, the areas between the ribs are still connected between each other, so I can pump out the water from a single point. For this, I got a little garden pump. There's no oil in the water, so I can just dump it on the lawn. After a couple of days, I got most of the water out, and for the rest I'm using 2 strong fans, which I'm gonna place at each entrance to air dry the rest of the humidity. That is all from me for today. Thank you for joining me once again, and see you in the next video.